Good morning. Hello, everyone. Hello. It's actually afternoon here in New York. And hello to everyone who's not watching the Alec Baldwin trial. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Just when you think things couldn't get any stranger, the dominoes are beginning to fall, my friends. The dominoes are beginning to fall. I was actually in heaven last night. I was in my happy place. Spent the evening 10 feet from Dave Matthews all night at Jones Beach outside by the water. And it was fabulous. It was fabulous. And I found out about Kevin Albert's suspension. And I actually posted it from the show. And then I had no service, so I had to wait till I got back to my car to post it. That's how dedicated I am to this cause, my friends. And I am awfully happy that I'm not covering the Alec Baldwin trial. I've chosen not to do that because I thought everybody else is doing it. And if everybody else is doing it, who's going to be here to cover the breaking news with you? Guess what? Me. It's me. I'm here. I'm here, everyone. If you don't follow me on Instagram, I posted some amazing video last night. I swear he was singing right at me. It's a crush and Gray Street. So check me out on Instagram and you can see the video there. I also, he took a selfie with us with the crowd, and I'm going to post that later. And it was so cool. It was so cool. Yeah, I decided not to cover the Baldwin trial because, I don't know. I just didn't feel as passionate about it as I did about covering this case, gavel to gavel, and perhaps the next case that we're going to cover, which may be the Ashley Benefield trial out of Florida. So I figured let me free myself up for all of these other things that keep coming up, including Sandra Birchmore that I have yet to cover. I started covering. I did one show on that so far. And also we are going to cover Nikki McCain, that tragic story out of Northern California, as soon as all of this breaking news stops, because I only have limited time. And so here's where we are today. A fourth juror has come forward to Alan Jackson in the Karen Reed case. And we're going to read those papers together because that's what I do here. We've also learned that Kevin Albert has been on paid administrative leave from the Canton PD since mid-June. And I'm really surprised it didn't come out before now. Like, I'm really surprised somebody didn't leak that or it didn't leak. And that's really interesting to me. And also, Proctor, the union for Proctor has issued a statement. We're going to look at that. They think that he's the victim here, which is a little odd, but interesting nonetheless. And then Chris Albert apologized last night at the Canton board meeting for his improper behavior as a public official during some of the shenanigans that went on in front of D&E Pizza. I think he was referring to what happened with Aiden Carney. And that was a little odd. Did any of you watch that Canton board meeting last night? I usually don't follow the local politics, but this became intertwined with it because right after Chris Albert gave his public apology, they announced that Kevin Albert had been on administrative paid leave since mid-June. So it was very interesting that it had not, it wasn't an apology. Isn't it ironic? You know what else came to my mind today? And then the harder they come, harder they fall, one and all. And that is Jimmy Cliff. And there have been many other versions. Jerry Garcia Band did a version of that, but the harder they come, the harder they fall. And the walls come crumbling down. And we're here for it. We are here for it. Calla Lily is going through cancer treatments. Everybody put some prayers up for Calla Lily. She says, I'm keeping her going. You're all keeping her going. We love you so much. We love you so much, Calla Lily. You got this. Stay strong. Sending you all the healing vibes. Every single one of them. Prayers up, everyone, for Calla Lily. Send her your good thoughts and healing vibes. You guys watch it. I'm going to give a couple more people a chance to get in here. And it was crazy. It was crazy. Thanks, Dina, for thanking me for all I do and for your super chat. Appreciate you. On top, coming in with the $2.99. Thanks for being on top of it. On top, Me Flower 66. I've heard a few people mention Steve Scanlon. Do you know who he is and what story is? Recently found you on Leverage Channel. Hi, hi, Me Flowers, and welcome, and thanks for the 5. Steve Scanlon apparently was a guy who went to David Yannetti shortly after January 29th of 22, may even have been the next day, and told him that he knew somehow that John O'Keefe had gone in the house and was in an altercation with the Alberts, and that's what led to his death. And he sort of disappeared. So I don't really know. I can't speak to the truth and veracity of it. Thanks, Amber, for being a member for 9 months. So glad to catch a live stream while canning spaghetti sauce. It's hot here today. I wouldn't can anything. I wouldn't even turn the stove on here today. Subbed over from Duty on. Thanks, Muddy Paws, for the 5. Love your channel. So glad I found you. I'm so glad you found me too. Let's take a look at what the new attorney, there's a new attorney who has been onboarded in this case. His name's Martin Weinberg. He's the big guns. He's out of Boston. The reason for that is twofold. He's a very accomplished appellate attorney. And also, if during this part of the case, David Yannetti and Alan Jackson are witnesses, which they most certainly are, being that people reached out to them directly, they would need another attorney to handle whatever happens from this alleged shenanigans involving the verdict form, the verdict slip, what happened with the jury. And so here are the papers that were filed just this morning. Got them hot off the presses for you. We're going to read them together. They're short. It is a motion or a supplement to the motion by Martin Weinberg, and then there's an affidavit from Alan Jackson. They're both relatively short, so we're going to read them together. I don't have much of a voice left today because I was singing at the top of my lungs along with Dave Matthews while he was singing to me. And you got to check out my video because I was so close. I could have almost touched him. Like, it was crazy. I will never go back to regular seats again. It is pit or nothing. Ride or die from here on out, my friends. Ride or die. All right. Here, filed just this morning. Defendant Karen Reed's supplemental memorandum in support of her motion to dismiss. Now comes the defendant, Karen Reed, by and through undersigned counsel, and hereby respectfully submits this supplemental memorandum in support of her motion to dismiss, filed July 8th, 2024. As reflected in the attached affidavit of Alan Jackson, a fourth deliberating juror, Juror D, has now confirmed that the jury reached not guilty verdicts on count 1 and count 3. Citing Alan Jackson affidavit paragraph 5. Once they were dismissed, many of the jurors appeared uncomfortable with how things ended, wondering, is anyone going to know that we acquitted Karen Reed on count 1 and 3? No one ever asked about those counts. At paragraph 8. Juror D told counsel, quote, part of his or her discomfort was that he or she knew that the jury had reached verdicts on 2 counts, and Karen Reed might be retried on those 2 counts, and that's just not right. See paragraph 9. Juror D further stated, every one of us will agree and acknowledge that we found Karen Reed not guilty of counts 1 and count 3, because that's what happened. Paragraph 10. Based on the attached affidavit and all of the reasons set forth in its opening motion, and the fact that the disclosures of Juror 10 completely confirm the veracity of the previously filed affidavits regarding jurors A, B, and C, the defense respectfully renews its contention that the jury acquitted Ms. Reed on counts 1 and 3, or alternatively, there was no manifest necessity for a mistrial as to those counts, and therefore the double jeopardy protections of the federal and state constitutions require that those counts not be retried. Wait, Annie, is this for real? Annie says, just went to D&E Pizza. Chris Albert came out, yelled at us, and threatened to call the cops. Annie, I hope that you went there just because you wanted a slice of pizza and not because you were going to, have anything to say to Chris Albert, but that's wild. Whole lot of shenanigans going on up there, my friends, in Norfolk County Superior Court. And it's not over yet. It's not over until it's over. Let's now look at Alan Jackson's affidavit. So if you're keeping score, so far, 2 actual jurors have reached out, both of them to Alan Jackson, and 2 other jurors reached out through an intervener and an intermediary. So that's like triple kind of hearsay, but it still raises questions about whether or not these allegations are true. And so my feeling is that as this continues to chug down the track, perhaps more jurors will come forward. And perhaps they would not have come forward if it wasn't for the misstating on Twitter of the split of the jury allegedly being something like 10-2 to convict of murder, I think, which is what that rumor was that ran like wildfire. So who knows what will happen next, but I'm here for it because Alec Baldwin is not going to be on this channel. Thank you very much. And not because I'm not interested in it. I think there's very interesting questions of law with regard to actors and their duties and firearms and rules of firearms, but they threw out Alec Baldwin's, or they're not going to allow the jury to hear that Alec Baldwin was a producer on the movie, which I think changes the whole case. But that is neither here nor there. We are staying on topic today. At least we're going to try. Tommy Bernhard, I don't know if you just joined here, but I was 5 feet from Dave Matthews last night. Check out, well, 10 feet. Check out my Instagram videos. They're awesome. He was singing directly to me, Tommy, directly to me. Not even going to lie. All right. Here's the affidavit in support. Alan Jackson's affidavit. Alan Jackson declares, I am a partner at the Los Angeles firm of Worksman, Jackson, and Quinn. Worksman, Jackson, and Quinn. I've been licensed to practice law since 1994. I'm counsel for Karen Reed, docket number 2282CR0117, appearing on her behalf in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Pro Hoc Vice. On Monday, July 8th, 2024, I was contacted by Juror D, true name and identity withheld to maintain anonymity. Based on my conversation with Juror D and that juror's description of who he or she is, where he or she was seated, and certain identifying information, name and occupation, disclosed during the voir dire process, I was able to positively identify Juror D as a sitting juror in the trial of this matter, including Juror D's seat position. Juror D told me that he or she decided to reach out to me because he or she was uncomfortable with how the trial ended. He or she said that the last day of trial was a whirlwind and everything happened fast. He or she recounted that his or her perspective was that the jury was brought into the courtroom, the note was read, and the mistrial was declared, and the jury was then rushed out of the courtroom. Following a brief meeting with the judge, the next thing they all knew, the jury was on the bus. I'll look this on continuous scroll. The next thing we all knew, the jury was on a bus. He or she described the end of the trial as very confusing. Juror D said that it was very troubling that the entire case ended without the jury being asked about each count, especially count number 1 and count number 3. Juror D explained that the jury reached not guilty verdicts on count 1 and count 3, and that the disagreement was solely as to count 2 and its lesser offenses. Juror D said that the jury actually discussed telling the judge that they had agreed unanimously on not guilty verdicts for counts 1 and 3, but they were not sure if they were allowed to say so. The jury believed that they were compelled to come to a resolution on all counts before they could or should report verdicts on any of the counts. After discussion, the jury decided to inform the court that they were deadlocked and they expected they would get further instruction about the remaining or decided counts thereafter. Juror D explained that he or she was confused and upset that such further instruction never came. Juror D explained that after the jury was excused and aboard the bus, many of the jurors appeared uncomfortable with how things ended, wondering, is anyone going to know that we acquitted Karen Reed on count 1 and 3? No one ever asked about those counts. Juror D stated that once the case was over, he or she remained very uncomfortable with the result. He or she reiterated, quote, it did not feel right, end quote. He or she said that part of his or her discomfort was that he or she knew that the jury had reached verdicts on 2 counts and Karen Reed might be retried on those 2 counts, end quote. That is just not right, end quote. I inquired whether, in his or her opinion, other jurors would agree and acknowledge that not guilty verdicts were reached on count 1 and count 3. Juror D, without hesitation, said in substance, every one of us will agree and acknowledge that we found Karen Reed not guilty of counts 1 and 3 because that's what happened. Juror D reiterated that he or she believes that it would be unjust for Karen Reed to be retried on either count 1, second-degree murder, Or count 3, leaving the scene with injury or death because the jury has already unanimously found her not guilty of those charges. Juror D further stated that if necessary, he or she would agree to testify in order to explain to the court that the jury unanimously reached not guilty verdicts on count 1 and count 3 as long as his or her identity remained protected. Should be another page here, but where is it? Where are you? Page 3. The foregoing is true and correct to the best of my knowledge and belief under penalty of perjury under the laws of the United States and the state of California and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, executed on July 9th in Los Angeles by Alan Jackson. Very, very interesting stuff. What say you? Thank you, Clinton, for sending me a cash app. That's so very kind of you. Appreciate you so much. And Maureen Francis also, and Justin Green getting in there for the cash app. Thank you so very much. Appreciate you guys so much. Uh, tell me what you think. The jurors are afraid. Somebody said, I believe it. Somebody said in the prior communication that they were afraid that, well, they said Higgins, but I think they meant Brian Albert was in the courtroom on the last day during closings. I mean, be honest. Do you think that he looked intimidating sitting there watching the jury during the closing that was talking about him potentially being the one who took the life of Officer John O'Keefe? He and Colin, and they're both sitting there, staring the jury down. Hi, Melly. Thank you so much for the 2. Nancy, so grateful you're staying with the Karen Reed case and not moving quickly to the next new case. Thank your mods too. Yes, Nancy, thank you so much for the 5. Thank you to my moderators. You guys are amazing. Keep the chat classy. This isn't going to be a long one today, but we have a lot of things to cover. It's just me. So if I'm doing all the talking, sometimes it goes faster. Tweedy, thanks for becoming a new member. Virgo and Muddy Paws all became new members. I think you're going to like it here. Athena says, thanks for 10. They said at the meeting, a third investigative body is investigating Kevin Albert. Could it be the FBI? He was also in the Sallyport not losing badge and gun. Let's get into Kevin Albert in just a second. I just want to remind you, there's a lot of chatter out there in the cesspool verse about the fact that these jurors did not complete affidavits themselves, that they were not met with in person, that the intermediary jurors are really a big nothing. But I'm going to tell you that Massachusetts law prohibits attorneys from contacting jurors after a verdict or trial is over. And that is not the case in many other states. For example, you saw in Murdoch, you saw how the 2 attorneys for Murdoch went door to door to talk to the jurors about the whole thing that happened with Miss Becky Hill. People say I play with my hair too much, but there's a piece that will not get out of my hair, so too bad. That won't get out of my face. So they were allowed to do that down there in the Low Country. In New York, it's not impermissible to speak to jurors after a trial. So in this case, the attorneys have to ask permission from Judge Cannoni, and that was part of the relief that they asked for in the original motion papers. This is a supplement to the motion paper. So they are not allowed to get affidavits from jurors at this early stage unless they have explicit permission from the judge, or unless the judge calls them in for a hearing, in which case they will be questioned by either just the judge in most cases, or perhaps the attorneys. We also saw this in the Maya Kowalski case. After the verdict, juror number 1 was brought in and they put him on TV. He had to answer for a lot of things that the defense in that case accused him of, including his wife being on YouTube in chat rooms giving super chats to law tubers that were covering the Maya Kowalski case. So it's not the first time that this has happened. It's the first time I've ever seen it happen where a mistrial was declared based on a hung jury, and then the jurors come out and say afterwards, wait a second, we acquitted her on 2 of the 3 charges. But we've all discussed the jury instructions were very confusing. And as this juror stated to Alan Jackson, they didn't understand if they were supposed to fill out the entire slip and then return it. Because I think some of you have pointed out to me that the judge did say in her instructions, after you have finished completing all of the forms, then come back after that. So hence the confusion. If they didn't know that they were supposed to fill out partial forms before coming back, I have not had a chance to go back and look at her instructions. If anybody has that exact timestamp and that exact portion of her instructions, you can feel free to email that to me at fanbase@mlittlelaw.com so that we can take a look at it. Shari D, thank you for gifting 5 memberships. You're so sweet and kind and generous. Thank you so much. RJ NLC, this really makes me think the judges are above the law. I'm not going to go there because I think she's got a chance to write this. Should she have polled the jury privately and said, are you able to, or sent a note back perhaps saying, are you deadlocked on all of the causes of action or all of the counts or just one or more of the counts or all of them across the board? Thank you, Joanne, for gifting 5 memberships. That's so sweet of you. Noni Lady, thank you for the 2. Summer, Brian Albert was very intimidating and making all those weird moves with his mouth. Thank you, Summer, for the 5. And he also looked like he was so uncomfortable. He was going to just bust out of his shirt. Like it was uncomfortable to watch from afar, let's say. Sarah and Schwackenhuara, thanks for the 10. Is there any scenario where the judge reprimands the jury for not calling out the acquittals and trying to save face here? They don't have blame in this, but I can't imagine Auntie Bev is happy. I think we need to go back and look at her jury instructions because a lot of people have pointed out to me that they were instructed to not come back until all the forms were filled out. And also, they were instructed that you can bring a copy of these instructions back to the jury room with you, but I'm also giving you these verbal instructions, and these verbal instructions are going to take precedent over the ones I send you on paper. So it's very confusing. When we went over charge 2 on the verdict form, I have a 30 degrees of legal experience and a law degree, and I was very confused by that second page with the manslaughter charge and all the lesser includeds. And in the jury instructions, someone else pointed this out. It said something like, if you find the defendant set the chain of these events in motion, you may find her guilty or something such like that. I don't want to misquote, but that is the gist of it. And if they thought, because a lot of people are thinking, how could they have voted to acquit on the 3rd charge, which is leaving the scene of a motor vehicle accident causing injury or death, if they're hung on count 2, which means they actually did think a car accident happened. And some people were saying, well, if the jurors were thinking, okay, she set the chain of events in motion by just dropping him off there, perhaps that was a way that they were going to get her, or that they were trying to, and somebody said, or the last juror that we heard from the intermediary said it was 8-4 to convict on manslaughter. We don't know what their conversations were inside the jury room, but it sure was confusing. Thank you, Sarah, for the 10. Denise, thanks for clarifying. For the 5, judge said that anything written instructions that contradicted her verbal instructions should be ignored. Could they make it more convoluted? Yes. And understand that when you're sending a jury back there, they are lay people. Not everyone has a law degree. I understand there may have been a lawyer on the jury. They may have been retired law enforcement on the jury. Some of them may be more well-versed in what goes on inside of a courtroom, but most of them don't have experience like that. And so the more confusing it is, the harder it's going to be for them in the room. I think the first question going in on that verdict slip should have been, do you believe that Karen Reed struck John O'Keefe with her vehicle? Yes or no? If the answer is no, stop. Stop here. If the answer is yes, then move on to the next charges. I think that's what the defense argued for. And it was not granted, but wouldn't that have made a whole lot more sense as we sit here today? Thanks, Raven, for thanking me for staying on this crazy ride with you all the way from Ireland. Thank you so very much. So we'll see what's going to happen with this. We'll see if anybody else comes forward. We'll see if the judge grants a hearing. We'll see if she sets it down for July 22nd, which is when the next conference is supposed to be. Or if at that conference she'll set down a date for a hearing, if she'll just deny a hearing altogether, if, like in Murdoch, they'll bring in another judge to hear this particular issue. And in Murdoch, when they did that with the juror issue and the issues with the clerk, that judge was amazing. The judge that came in, she was a retired judge who came back just to help on that case, and she was really, really good. Right, Kristen, exactly. The lawyer can't contact the jury, but the jury can contact the lawyer. That's why this is permissible. That's why this is permissible. Thank you for your super chat. So, Sandra, Bev has sealed the jurors' details now. So, how can affidavits from jurors be obtained? Is Bev obstructing justice? Thanks, Sussex Sandra, for the 5. They are sealed from the public. They're sealed from the public court file. I don't believe they're sealed from the attorneys because remember, the attorneys did the voir dire. They know who everyone is. They did Corey checks or criminal checks on all of these jurors. So the attorneys know who they are. And that's what that meant when that was sealed or impounded the other day. It's such a weird thing to do, impound. It's like impounding a car. As the world burns, how did the defense not have the judge ask the jury what counts were deadlocked? It seemed obvious they would deadlock on 2. How did they not see that? It's a good point. I mean, Alan Jackson has never been afraid to stand up and speak his mind, right? But then again, you run the risk if you stand up and say, we want to know if they were deadlocked on all 3. If they come back and say, well, no, we convicted on murder. It's risky if you do that, right? That's my opinion. They're not allowed to poll the jury out in the open and ask them which way they decided because it's a hung jury. So they can't do that in open court. The judge could have inquired with regard to which, if any, what, if any, charges they were deadlocked on, and what, if any, charges they convicted on. And she could say, without telling me exactly what charges they are, just tell me whether or not you were able to agree on any of the charges. And that would have solved this whole problem. So, yeah, we find ourselves in a bit of a mishigas right now, if you know what I'm saying. All right, let's take a look at a piece from last night, I believe, or now. This is actually from this morning. This is the reporting on Kevin Albert being on leave, and then we'll talk about why we think he's on leave. So let's take a listen to this. Kevin Albert, you may remember, or you may not, if you're just tuning in today for the first time, is the brother of Brian Albert, homeowner at 34 Fairview Road, on whose lawn Officer John O'Keefe's body was found. You know that Officer John O'Keefe was a Boston police officer. Brian Albert was also a Boston police officer. His brother Kevin was a Canton police officer. And we learned during some of the text messages from Proctor that Kevin Albert orchestrated some of the interviews to be handled by the Massachusetts State Police, Proctor and Buchanan. Kevin Albert was involved. He was setting up the interviews, even though Canton Police Department was immediately, allegedly, conflicted off this case because of Brian Albert's relationship to his brother, who was a Canton police officer, which really didn't matter because they stayed involved anyway. They towed Karen's car back to Canton PD Sallyport. Why did they do that if Canton PD was conflicted out? You know, when you're investigating any death, I would submit to you, you should be dotting all your I's and crossing all your T's, but especially the death of a police officer, a fellow brother in blue. Wouldn't you make sure that everything was done by the book? That everything in this case was airtight, handled properly. And this was such a mess from the beginning that who knows if Officer John O'Keefe will ever get justice, but we hope so. Let's hear what Channel 5 has to say about Kevin Albert being placed on leave.
Antoinette and Doug, good morning. It did, and we're just now finding out about it. The police chief here in Canton confirms that Kevin Albert, a detective here in Canton, was placed on leave back on June 13th. That was 3 days after Trooper Michael Proctor took the witness stand in the Karen Reed case. The chief says Albert is on administrative leave pending an investigation into Proctor's testimony. On the witness stand, Proctor acknowledged he was friends with Kevin Albert. He told the jury they went out drinking several months after John O'Keefe died. They worked on a cold case together and communicated about the O'Keefe case. The Canton Police Department had already recused itself from the investigation due to Albert's connection to it. Kevin Albert's brother, Brian, was a key witness for the prosecution and one of the people the defense tried to implicate in O'Keefe's death. Now, earlier this week, Proctor was placed on unpaid leave by the state police following a duty status hearing, and that was due to offensive text messages that he sent from his personal phone to colleagues as well as friends. Those messages, of course, were about Karen Reed. The union representing Trooper Proctor calls the move, quote, disappointing. In a statement, the State Police Association of Massachusetts says it, quote, will never condone the unacceptable language used in personal text messages presented as evidence during the trial. But the union says the suspension is a punishment for Proctor's family. Trooper Proctor.
Here's where they start calling Proctor the victim. Listen to this.
Remains the subject of an ongoing internal affairs investigation. Reporting live this morning in Canton, Todd Kiskiewicz, WCVB News Center 5.
Okay, so that news channel is reporting that Kevin Albert was put on leave 3 days after Proctor's testimony. Someone else reported that it was 1 day after Proctor's testimony, and he didn't mention, by the way, that Proctor's text messages revealed that he and Kevin Albert were out drinking down the Cape, got hammered in a police-issued vehicle, drove back to somewhere, and then the next morning, Kevin Albert sent Proctor a message like, dude, where's my gun? Have you seen my gun? Not exactly in those words, but you know what I mean. And Proctor said, oh, no, but I found your badge in my car. And he's like, dude, okay, cool, drop it off in my mailbox. They didn't mention that on that news story. So that's kind of interesting. It wasn't just about Kevin Albert going out for drinks. It was about that. Yeah, Karen Reed lost her health insurance too, right? Right, Fairy Raven. Yep. Channel 5 is very biased. Okay, let's look and see what Channel 10 has to say. Thank you for saying that, because I remember that one of the Albert's attorneys is like a legal analyst on some local Boston channel. Is it Channel 5? I don't remember. All right, here's this story from Channel NBC.
Chief Rafferty has placed Kevin Albert on paid administrative leave while an outside please be quiet. While an outside independent.
We have some developing news tonight. You just heard there. The Canton Police Department placed Detective Kevin Albert on paid administrative leave. The announcement came during the Canton Select Board meeting this evening. An independent probe is underway into his behavior while investigating a case with Michael Proctor 2 years ago. Also tonight, Kevin's brother, Chris Albert, who serves on the board, apologized for his recent verbal altercations that were in the public eye. We want to get right out to our NBC 10's Erin Logan. She was at tonight's meeting that was very contentious. She's joining us live there in Canton with the latest developments. Erin.
Well, Priscilla, the biggest revelation is that Officer Kevin Albert has been placed on paid administrative leave since June 13th. His brother, Select Board member Chris Albert, also issuing a public apology, as you mentioned. But before all of this, a lot of heated public comment.
The investigation and the evidence collection was gross incompetence at best.
That's Rita Lombardi. If you know, you know.
It started out calm.
Does the chief recognize the missteps that have occurred?
And quickly turned chaotic.
Take your hands off.
Speakers going over the public comment time limit, getting heated. Most of the comments centered around the Canton Police Department's initial investigation into the murder of Officer John O'Keefe in January 2022.
Your chief of police, your select board members are part of a cover-up. And that's earth-shattering for townies.
Canton resident Jen O'Donnell is pointing the finger at Select Board member Chris Albert. He's the brother of Brian Albert, who hosted the party that turned into the murder crime scene of Officer John O'Keefe. He's also the brother of Canton officer Kevin Albert. Some news coming out about his status.
Chief Rafferty has placed Kevin Albert on paid administrative leave.
The reason?
Conducted relative to his actions in a case he investigated with Michael Proctor approximately 2 years ago.
Okay. in relative to his actions in a case he investigated with Proctor approximately 2 years ago. Okay, well, let's remember that.
Decision about Kevin Albert's status was made on June 13th. From June 10th through 12th, Massachusetts State Trooper Michael Proctor, who's now suspended without pay, testified in the Karen Reed trial. Proctor admitted to partying with Albert in July 2022, months into the Reed investigation. In court, defense attorney Alan Jackson read these texts Albert sent Proctor.
It's bad! Exclamation point, exclamation point. I was hungover for sure today! Exclamation point, exclamation point. But he left his badge in your cruiser after a night of drinking. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Back at the select board meeting, an apology from member Chris Albert over his 2 verbal altercations in public. He referenced the stress and anxiety his family has experienced over the last 16 months.
Interactions were inappropriate, and as an elected official, I am held to a higher standard.
That's his apology.
Some of the residents, despite the apology, feel so much damage has been done since the murder of John O'Keefe, a handful even calling for receivership of the Canton Police Department. Live in Canton tonight, Erin Logan, NBC 10 Boston.
All right, Doc, off the job and suspended without pay. Michael Proctor, the lead investigator in the Karen Reed case.
Okay, we'll just roll into this because I guess it's on autoplay. So let's just, when was this from? Oh, this is 22 hours ago. So let's just roll into this.
Boston 25 News reporter Lisa Pappas, you asked an attorney about the impact the move could have on a possible second trial.
Yeah, well, our legal expert says this can't be good for the prosecution moving forward. Trooper Proctor had just been transferred here to Troop H here in South Boston after he was relieved of his duties at the DA's office. But now he can't even work here as the investigation into his conduct continues.
It was a step in the right direction, but it's no way close to the finish line.
Dozens of people gathered outside the Massachusetts State Police Barracks in South Boston Monday, celebrating the news.
What are they calling everybody now? The pink shirt people? Hold on, let's just rewind that, see if see anybody. I think is that Scott McGinnis speaking?
That's no way close to the finish line.
Dozens of people gathered outside the Massachusetts State Police Barracks in South Boston Monday, celebrating the news that State Trooper Michael Proctor was just suspended without pay.
Today was just the icing on the cake, but it will be best when he's actually fired as an employee of the state.
Proctor
that was Paul
the lead
Cristoforo,
investigator in the Karen Reed murder case. State police held a duty status hearing Monday and found there was enough evidence to take him off the job without pay for now.
They wouldn't have done that unless they really thought he did something egregious.
State police say they started investigating Proctor's behavior after his concerning testimony during the trial. When he took the stand, he read derogatory text messages he had sent about Karen Reed while investigating her boyfriend's death.
I think that the Commonwealth would be crazy in order to retry her again. He's the lead investigator. And if you can't trust him, how can you trust any of the evidence that he came out with?
At this point, the Norfolk County DA still plans to retry Karen Reed after her case ended in a mistrial last week. So how could Proctor's suspension affect the next trial?
Yeah, there's no dancing around the fact that by the time this retrial happens, he could very well be completely fired or even facing certain kinds of charges against him for his behavior in the investigation. So it certainly is agreed by all that he's going to look bad if he has to testify again.
People here hope this is just the start to hold even more people accountable for any missteps in this investigation.
Proctor is the clickbait. Sorry, Michael, you are the clickbait. But he's the story right now that shows what's going on and the systemic problems in the Mass State Police.
State police say the internal affairs investigation on Proctor will continue. Once that ends, we'll find out whether or not he will be fired, and he could even face charges. Live in South Boston, I'm Lisa Pappas for your local station, Boston 25 News.
Yep. I did a show with Judy Ron and Ed Wallace the other night, and they are convinced that Proctor will be facing charges. So that's interesting to hear from the perspective of two retired NYPD detectives and Ed Wallace, a forensics expert who is horrified about the way this case was handled forensically in the investigation and the crime scene, etc. And the walls come crumbling down to Violet Lilac. Thank you to Burner. Burner Mom told me that it was day 31. Timestamp was 4:40. Is that from my stream, day 31? See if we can pull that up to listen to what she told the jury about the instructions. Talk amongst yourselves for a minute. Talk amongst yourselves. Okay. Let's pull that up for a second and see if it's confusing to us, as it seemed to be confusing to the jury. This was day 31, which was the same day as closing arguments in this case.
Decisions are the most likely to reflect stereotypes or hidden biases. Take time to consider all the evidence. Second, as you start to draw conclusions, consider what evidence, if any, supports the conclusions you are drawing and whether any evidence casts doubt on those conclusions. Double check whether you are actually using unsupported assumptions instead of the evidence. Third, as you think about the people involved in this case, consider them as individuals rather than as a member of a particular group. Fourth, I might ask myself, would I view the evidence differently if the people were from different groups, such as different racial, ethnic, or gender identity groups? Fifth, listen to your fellow jurors. They may have different points of view. If so, they may help you determine whether you are focusing on the facts or making assumptions, perhaps based on stereotypes. Of course, your fellow jurors could be influenced by their own unstated assumptions. So don't be shy or hesitate to speak up. You should participate actively, particularly if you think the other jurors are overlooking or undervaluing evidence you find important. In fact, when you explain your thoughts out loud to other jurors, you are also helping yourself to focus on the evidence instead of assumptions. If you use these strategies, then you will do your part to reach a decision that is as fair as humanly possible. That is your responsibility as jurors. Now, during the course of your deliberations, you might have a question concerning the law in this case. I'm not suggesting that you will, but you might. Perhaps I said something you did not understand. If you have any questions, please feel free to bring them to my attention by writing a note dated and signed by the foreperson and sending it to me by way of the court officer. Because your role as the jury is to determine the facts of the case, I cannot answer any questions you have concerning the facts of the case. I have no role in this case when it comes to deciding what the facts are. Neither is it possible to provide you with a transcript of the testimony, even though we've had a phenomenal court reporter throughout this whole trial. If you send a question to me, I will respond after consulting with the lawyers. Please do not ask a court officer or anyone else to answer any questions concerning anything material to the case. We will not answer a question or take a verdict between 1 and 2. You'll have lunch brought into you and decide whether you want to stop your deliberations during lunch or deliberate. At the end of the day, if you're still deliberating, I'll send in a note asking if you want to continue deliberating or break for the day and return tomorrow morning. Don't tell anyone, including me, how the jury stands numerically or otherwise on the questions before such time as you have reached a unanimous verdict. You are going to notice shortly that the court officers are...
Okay, so right there, do not tell anybody anything about your splits until you have reached a unanimous verdict. But it's unclear about whether she means unanimous verdict with regard to all of the counts or all of the charges, Or just one? Let's take that back a second.
Otherwise on the questions, including me, how the jury stands for the day, and return tomorrow morning. Don't
There you go.
tell anyone, including me, how the jury stands numerically or otherwise on the questions before such time as you have reached a unanimous verdict. You are going to notice shortly that the court officers are going to take an oath, and you will hear from that they too, as well as all other persons,
Before such time as you've reached a unanimous verdict. I mean, it doesn't say on all three, right? All or nothing. Her instructions are confusing. And here's the other thing about the court officers, and I've heard this, people have sent this to me, you've emailed me to tell me that perhaps, and I cannot confirm its veracity, Lieutenant Fanning was in charge of the jury. Lieutenant Fanning, who was involved in the Birchmore case, who I believe was also involved in the Karen Reed case, who was on the chain of text messages when Proctor was looking for news. I find that really hard to believe that they would put Lieutenant Fanning in charge of the jury. So if anyone has actual proof of that, please tell me, because that is shocking. Michelle Fannin says yes. Okay, what? Yes. What? How could that happen? Wasn't Fanning on the text exchange with Proctor when he was looking for nudes? I mean, what? Yeah, wow. What? That's what I heard. And she's saying right here she's going to give the court officers an instruction. Let's hear what she goes on to say about that.
are forbidden to communicate in any way or manner with any member of this jury on any subject touching on the merits of this case. Remember that the decision of the jury must be unanimous, and the foreperson should be certain that each member of the jury is in complete agreement with the verdict. After the final vote of the jury, the foreperson should check the appropriate boxes as to each charge, then sign and date the verdict slips and notify the court officer that you have reached a unanimous verdict. You will then be brought back into the courtroom where the foreperson will deliver the verdicts to the court. I'm going to seek counsel before we reduce your number to 12.
Okay, so, I mean, again, it's a little bit confusing. You have to fill everything out. Just take it back. Make sure that you check the appropriate boxes on each. The jury must be unanimous in every count. Hold on. Play it again because I'm confused.
Well as all other persons are forbidden to communicate in any way or manner with any member of this jury on any subject touching on the merits of this case. Remember that the decision of the jury must be unanimous, and the foreperson should be certain that each member of the jury is in complete agreement with the verdict. After the final vote of the jury, the foreperson should check the appropriate boxes as to each charge, then sign and date the verdict slips and notify the court officer that you have reached a unanimous verdict. You will then be brought back.
Right, that they have reached a unanimous verdict. So they did not reach a unanimous verdict on all three of the counts. And the second one was very confusing because it had all of those lesser included charges in it. And then you tell the court officer, somebody says, Danielle says MSP is in charge of the jury, is what I was told. Was Fanning really in charge of this jury? She instructs them they're not supposed to talk to any court officer or anybody involving their deliberations, but are they in the room? Are they listening to the deliberations? Do they know what's going on? Could it be that that's how some people got certain information about certain things about what was going on with the jury? I don't know. Fanning drew the numbers. No, that was Jim, the court clerk, that drew the numbers. Wasn't it? So I don't know, but he was involved in Sandra Birchmore for sure. And then when they talk about Kevin Albert's suspension being due to a case that he handled with Proctor around 2 years ago, are they talking about the cold case that they went to investigate down the Cape when they got hammered and he lost his gun and badge? Is that the case they're talking about? And that's what happened during that case? Are they talking about the Karen Reed / John O'Keefe case, wherein Kevin Albert was organizing interviews for witnesses, even though he was supposed to be conflicted off the case and not touching that case at all? Or is it some other case altogether? Because they didn't mention in that news, one of the news pieces that we watched about the missing gun. So I don't know. I think maybe it could be another one for all we know. Could be. But it seems a little sus that they're saying approximately 2 years ago. And if it was in July of 2022 that those text messages were going back and forth between Proctor and Kevin Albert, that Proctor claimed they were working on some cold case together. That's exactly 2 years ago, July of 2022, when he lost his gun and badge. So people are saying it's not related to him losing his gun and badge, but maybe they're just saying it's related to a case, and that's the case they were working when he lost his gun and badge, and therefore he's on paid leave or paid summer vacation, as some people like to say. Brass, thanks for the 5. Kevin Albert and Michael Lank worked with MSP on Sandra Birchmore's death. Trooper Guarino said no texts or calls for Sandra, and SPD abusers PI found 10,000 text messages missing. I haven't gotten into the MSP version investigation of the Sandra Birchmore case, but that's going to be the next installment, episode 2. If you haven't seen episode 1, go back and watch it. I did that a couple days ago. And it's shocking. Yeah, Proctor was not on that case, so they can't be referring to Birchmore. Also, Birchmore was over 3 years ago. Blessed Mom from Texas says, I think the feds are still around and they're knocking these folks down one by one. And at the end, Karen Reed will be acquitted, in my opinion. Love to all. Thank you, Blessed Mom from Texas. Hope you fared okay with the hurricane and for your 10. Thunder Road Queen watching both you and the Alec Baldwin trial. MSP could take some lesson on crime scene investigating from the first witness. First witness in Alec Baldwin. Thank you, Thunder Road Queen. Dewey, do we think arresting Turtle Boy in front of his kid's school bus wasn't hurtful to his kids? I mean, thank you, Dewey. Chiming in. Oh, they're at over 9,000. There are 9,500 people watching and only 2,500 likes. Yeah, everyone, please just take a second to hit the like button and let's get those up there. Otherwise, I'll put on some Lally-by music for you and we can listen to Lally question a witness and put you all to sleep. Thank you. It helps the YouTube algorithm, gets the stream out there, because today, actually, when I logged on to StreamYard, it said it wouldn't connect. It said there's overwhelming traffic today. You have to wait a couple. That's why I was a little bit late. You have to wait a couple of minutes because everyone is streaming Alec Baldwin today. So hopefully we're getting an okay quality on this stream. I don't know, because the airwaves are breaking. Why they're breaking for Alec Baldwin and they didn't break for Karen Reed, I have no idea, but they are. Thank you, Joanne Byer, very much. Furious, thanks for the 5. Juror D said they never asked about those charges, implying someone in the court did ask about count 2. Who was asking them those questions? That is a great question, Furious, that I hope will be further probed if these jurors are brought in for questioning anonymously, of course, as well they should. Tina T, good evening from Dubai. Good evening to Dubai. My husband knows nothing about this case. I showed him the jury instructions followed by Bev's instructions. He doesn't understand why there are 3 charges and also why slip number 2 is so problematic. It is so problematic. I agree with you. Thank you for tuning in for Dubai and for your super chat. Appreciate you so. Replay Jim picking alternates. No way there's 17 rolling around in there. All right, I'm not going to go that far. I mean, we can play it. We'll just let this play a little bit. But I mean, Michelle, I get what you're saying, and thank you so much for the 5. But would they go that far? I don't know. Let's listen.
Back into the courtroom where the foreperson will deliver the verdicts to the court. I'm going to see counsel before we reduce your number to 12.
Okay, let's see. It's so weird to see my face next to my face, but not guilty. Low come on at 15. Thank you. Karen gifted 10 memberships. Thank you so much.
9. Step down and take your person
Okay.
in seat number.
Welcome so much. All right, so here's Jim. Here's Jim. And maybe we could zoom in a little bit so we can see, or you can try and zoom in a little bit on your end so we can see what exactly he's pulling out of this drum. All right, let's view who received them. Congrats and welcome. Yeah, it's like
a sitting in seat number 3.
It's like a little cube or something. It's like a little cube, but Michelle says that no way there are 17 numbers rolling around in there. Well, let's see. We were down to, I think by the final day, there were only 14 jurors left, right? Because one was let go, and then 12 are on the jury. The foreman was picked already, and then they only took 2 out of this bin. So let's listen to this bin. Let's listen to this rolling again. Of you who received them, congrats and welcome. It's hard to tell, Michelle, really. Yeah, it's like
Juror sitting in seat number 3, who was juror 79, step down and take your place as an alternate.
Ooh. Like bingo.
Juror sitting in seat number 2, juror 14.
All right. So,
And
ladies
that
and
was
gentlemen,
it.
we need to swear in the court officers. They're going to be in charge of you during your deliberations. I suggest that you listen to the oath that they are taking so that you can be aware of their responsibilities. Now you can swear them, Mr. Clerk.
It's interesting.
You swear that you will keep this jury and alternates in some separate but convenient place until they agree, that you not suffer any person to speak to them, nor speak to them yourselves, nor ask them if they are agreed, nor
They say court officers, but I only see one gentleman there. Perhaps he's the only one on camera. I don't know if he's a court officer or if that is, in fact, Lieutenant Fanning. I don't know.
suffer them to disperse until they're discharged at their verdict, except by further order of the court, so help you God. Thank you.
All right. So, jurors, I need not remind you that you have an important responsibility, but I believe that you will bring to bear all the wisdom and the judgment and conscience that you possess in reaching your verdict in this case. All that we can expect from you is that you decide the case with integrity and with principle. We all expect you to reach an impartial verdict dictated by your logic, without bias, without prejudice or sympathy, and not prompted by any facts except those that you have heard here in the court during trial. We are looking for impartial judgment dictated by your reasoning and the fullest discharge of your oaths as jurors. You may now retire and deliberate your verdict.
Jurors, this time taking your notebooks. All rise.
Okay, they're going to deliberate and have lunch and take their notebooks with them. Robin says there's 6 men and 6 women left. So there was a woman dismissed this morning. We don't know why. That left us with 14 jurors, 8 women and 6 men. So we can assume now, if Robin is correct, that there's 6 men. And I'm glad I can refresh my own recollection by playing my own stream. Good Citizen says, keep watching and listening. I heard the defense asked to see the balls. All right, let's see if it's on here. 6 women left. The 2 alternates that were chosen were both women, and they were in seats number 2 and 3. And they were spun around in like a bingo thing and pulled out. That's how this jurisdiction does it, apparently.
So, counsel, I'll give you a few minutes to work with Mr. McDermott on the verdict slip, and then I'll come back out.
Oh, they're not even giving him the verdict slip yet? All right, yeah. I would like to see the verdict sheet. I don't know
All rise for the court, please.
if we're going to be able to see that or not, but that's pretty important. That would give us a peek into what the jury actually looks like. Well, the fan went on at that point, so. And what they bring into the room with them to decide. That was day 31. That in my stream, maybe it was on some other like Court TV or something, perhaps. Chris 10 says that was quite a coincidence that the 3 last jurors eliminated were the 3 that reported the other female juror for talking about Karen, who was eliminated, the one who got caught on film. I was in court that day, so I don't know exactly what happened, I can't confirm that or deny. Like, I don't know that that's true, but it was definitely 2 female jurors. And there was one who was dismissed that morning for reasons unknown. So I don't know, but thanks, Kristen. I think we were going to look into that. Breast 6073, thanks for the 5. This corruption is getting deeper. Chris Albert is scripted apology, blaming 16 months of harassment. Then Kevin's suspension. Something is up there. Yeah, he did. He went on and talked about himself. Thank you, Dudley Do Right. I already have this, I believe. that was what we went over this morning. Thank you so much for emailing that to me. As a side note, I am in talks with a fan favorite from the courtroom, Craig Bates, who was the guy who was our favorite, who sat at the little TV table behind the defense team. He's the litigation expert specialist. We call him the AV squad guy, to come on the show. And I think we're hoping to do it maybe sometime tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that. Subscribe, hit the bell. Craig is going to come on the show and talk to us about whatever he can talk to us about. Have your questions ready for him, because it's going to be a good show. Yeah, like magic. Thank you. Maybe the truth will come out after all, she says. Paul printed hard. Thanks for the 5. If the Commonwealth tries her on count 2, is there jail time? Yes, it's up to 20 years. I believe it's up to 20 years, manslaughter. Melissa, thanks for the 5. Assuming the impounding of the witness identifications isn't standard, since it wasn't done immediately, do you think it was primarily directed at the lawyers or the media? No, I think it was directed at the general public. Perhaps the media, but I don't think the media would go after the jurors and try and interview them. I think that they are afraid of what could happen by some of the trolls out there finding out who these jurors are. Because these people are relentless. If you know, you know. Thank you, Kelly Mack. Any idea whether there's a 10-day time frame on the name impoundment? I think because during that time, the attorneys can make motions or argue or put in papers to keep it out there for longer. Gives the attorneys a chance to react to that and to respond. Thanks for the 5, Kelly. Thank you, Alistair Crowley, for the 25. No message, Melanie. Just show how much we appreciate you and your guests. Mark, you've helped me get through this horrible mess of a trial. Thank you, Alistair Crowley. I appreciate you so very much. All right, let's take a look at something. Here's what the union says about Proctor. This is unreal. Thank you, Alistair Crowley. I appreciate you. This was in yesterday. It was updated last night in yesterday's Boston Herald. Union says state police punishing Proctor's family with no pay suspension. Trigger warning, because I know this is going to anger a lot of you, especially those of you who are local. The state police union is criticizing the agency for suspending Trooper Michael Proctor, the lead investigator in the Karen Reed murder case, without pay, calling the move a punishment to his young family. The statement from Brian Williams, president of the State Police Association of Massachusetts, came a day after interim state police colonel John Maughan accepted a recommendation that Proctor be suspended without pay, effective immediately. Proctor made $184,397 last year, according to state comptroller records. Quote, the decision to suspend him without pay pending the outcome of the investigation is disappointing because it shifts Trooper Proctor's punishment to his young family, Williams said in his statement. Quote, his children will lose access to benefits such as health insurance. He continued, to mitigate the impact on them, a more reasonable action would have been a suspension that did not affect their medical coverage. State police officials called a virtual duty status hearing for Proctor on Monday, in which a board of 3 determined whether the trooper would remain on full duty, be placed on restricted duty, be suspended without pay, or be suspended without pay, with or without pay. Hours after Norfolk County Judge Beverly Cannoni declared a hung jury in the Reed murder trial on July 1st, state police relieved the trooper of duty, transferring him out of the detective unit assigned to the Norfolk County DA's office. Proctor had the opportunity to be represented by counsel and defend his actions during the hearing, which was closed off to the public and the media. Williams is standing firm in the union's stance that Proctor's discipline is connected to private text messages he exchanged during the investigation. To date, we have received no information to indicate that his suspension was the result of anything other than these text message exchanges. The union president said in his statement, "We would like to reiterate that unless the department's ongoing investigation proves otherwise, yesterday's actions have no relationship to salacious allegations of cover-ups, collusion, or conspiracies offered by the defense." Well, I'm going to submit to you, my friends, that Proctor did this to himself and his family. Not only did he have these disgusting text message exchanges with not his grade school and high school friends, but also with Yuri Buchanan, his supervisor, because now he's his supervisor all of a sudden. Fanning, DeChico, and whoever else was in on that text messages where he's looking for nudes. He also lied to the state grand jury about his personal ties to the Alberts. And as such, many other issues of misconduct going on during the investigation of the Karen Reed case, including solving the case within 16 hours, deciding to pin it on the girl, telling his friends that the Boston cop whose house it wasn't going to catch any flack because he's a Boston cop too. I'm sorry, union president, but it goes a little bit deeper than just his calling her a whack job on his private cell phone. So that's my response to that. Back to this article in the Boston Herald says, Proctor's 2-day testimony during the trial led lawyers to reveal personal texts in which the trooper used degrading and explicit language regarding Reed, leading to the widespread criticism of the investigator's conduct and an internal review by the state police. In some messages, Proctor called Reed a whack job, C-word, and a babe. Wrote, quote, "No nudes so far" to colleagues while searching her phone, and made explicit fun of her gastrointestinal issues, among other derogatory comments that I will not repeat here. The State Police Association of Massachusetts will never condone the unacceptable language used in his personal text messages presented as evidence during the trial, Williams said in his statement. Every member of the Massachusetts State Police hopes that the O'Keefe family finds peace, comfort, and closure as they continue to mourn the loss of their loved one, Williams said in his statement. Until the focus is shifted away from collateral issues and back to investigating and prosecuting the death of John O'Keefe, the justice his family deserves will be delayed. Okay, so union guy, Williams, are you now claiming that you're going to go back to investigating? They're going to go back to investigating the death of John O'Keefe? Because they didn't really investigate it so well to begin with, or really at all. But if they're going to go back to investigating his death, that's a very interesting choice of words there. Until the focus is shifted away from collateral issues and back to investigating and prosecuting the death of John O'Keefe, the justice his family deserves will be delayed. Well, yeah, I'm all for it. Let's go back to investigating it. Let's go back to doing the things you should have done, or your guys should have done in the first place. Instead of going to interview the Sullivan sisters in Aruba, maybe you should have focused more on potential other suspects. Did you guys ever investigate the unknown sources of DNA that were found on the stains of Officer John O'Keefe's clothing? That'd be a great place to start. You can bet that the FBI has so much more that we don't know about. They don't need, yes, thank you, David Reese, for the 5. Internal Affairs doesn't get involved over text messages. They sure don't. You can bet the FBI has so much more that nobody knows about yet. Here's a video of what Chris Albert was apologizing for. Yeah, there's curse words in here, but Chris Albert. Oh, he said, I'll beat your face in. Hold on. All right, I'll just play this little portion of it. And if there's any foul language, I've been stricken on too many of these streams for what what some people have been saying during the testimony. But it is what it is. All right, so here's Chris Albert. He's outside his pizzeria. This is him in the baseball cap, and it's Aiden Carney or Turtle Boy in the background filming this. And here's what Chris Albert did and said. Okay, so then during his apology at the town board meeting last night, he says, yeah, my family's been harassed and intimidated by these people for 16 months. Does he look intimidated there? Because he just said he might beat his face in. I don't know. Oh, no sound. Oh, boo, boo, boo. There should be sound on it. Hold on. I don't know how to get it for you with sound. Somebody sent it to me. You can look it up. Just look up anything about Chris Albert. Somebody sent this to me. It was a tweet by somebody called Lunchbox Lally. And that's where the video is. Little Irish Girl says that MSP is tasked with day-to-day handling of jurors. Thank you very much for that. So was it panning? Was it not? Thanks, Anne-Marie, for your super sticker. Catilla, thank you. Says Brian Albert terrified me, and I'm all the way over the sea in Australia. Thank you, everyone who's now sending me the jury instructions. I thank you very much for that. There's also another article that is behind a paywall. For some reason, I can only open it on my phone, that with regard to Kevin Albert's suspension. But I did post it on my community page, so you can read about it there. And I think we went over that. With regard to Fanning, I don't know if he's really in charge of the jury. If anybody has any proof of that, let me know, because that would be very interesting for me to see. And if anybody knows whether or where I can find that video of Chris Albert's actual apology, you know, I think played it last night on his show was LTL. And I was listening to it in the car, and he talked about it after, but he let it play through. So let me see if I can find that. I mean, it's really like a real half-assed apology that he made all about himself. It was weird because they like blew right by it. Oh, here he is. Okay, good. Here he Okay, here it is. Thanks, Brian from LTL. I'm sure you won't mind me playing your stream. Everyone go subscribe to Brian. He did this last night live. So it was kind of a surprise. I don't think anybody expected this to come, but here it is. Maybe if we all complain about this new YouTube format, they'll get rid of it, but I don't know.
We have two statements to read. So, Mr. Albert, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. Okay, as many of you know, I've had two recent verbal altercations with members of the public outside of my role as a select board. Despite the tremendous harassment, stress, and anxiety that my family, extended family.
Okay, this is Chris Albert. Yeah, that's Brian from LTL. Definitely subscribe to him. He covers a lot of local politics in Canton and the Karen Reed case and a lot of other stuff. And he's also just a really all around, really nice, cool guy. My friend, Brian. This is Chris Albert. Let's just take it back a second. He is a selectman on the Canton Town Board. And this is his apology for the video that you couldn't hear that I tried to play.
Okay, as many of you know, I've had two recent verbal altercations with members of the public outside of my role as a select board. Despite the tremendous harassment, stress, and anxiety that my family, extended family, and I have been subjected to over the past 16 months, my interactions were inappropriate. And as an elected official, I am held to a higher standard. And I understand that the residents of Canton expect public officials to always conduct themselves professionally and focus on the business of the town. I apologize for my recent reaction and will refrain from any further public incidents that I'm becoming as a member of this Canton Select Board. Thank you.
Who do you think scripted that for him? And then there's people cheering in the background. Apparently some of the McCabe and Albert families were there. When I looked through the crowd, when they showed a crowd shot, I didn't know. I couldn't tell who was who. But here they go. They're going to applaud him now.
There's people cheering him. There's people cheering.
I don't know who's in the gallery from any of the McCabe or Alberts, but maybe you guys do. But he must have brought some support with him because he knew he was going to read that non-apology apology. Thank you very much. Starter villain. Agreed. Chris Patch is saying he doesn't have very good chicken parm over there. Yep. Gil Rogers. Hi, Gil Rogers. Gil. Jill. I'm sorry. It's Jill. It's Jill like Jillian. Jill. Tuning in from the UK. Do all these people see themselves as victims? OMG, you just cannot write this. They are delusional. Yeah, you know, I've been saying that. Like, if you were in a Hollywood writer's room, you couldn't script this any better than the way this thing is unfolding. Thanks, Jill, for tuning in. Everyone say hi to Jill. Jill's new in chat. Now they're going to announce the next thing, and they just sort of just blow right by it. Here we go.
Thank you, Mr. Albert. In
Those
additional
people
statement,
cheering don't want justice.
Chief Rafferty has placed Kevin Albert on paid administrative leave while an outside, and please be quiet, while an outside independent investigation is being conducted relative to his actions in a case he investigated with Michael Proctor approximately 2 years ago. Kevin Albert was placed on leave on June 13th and will remain on leave until the results of the investigation are provided by the outside independent investigator.
Unreal.
All right.
No
All right,
applause for
first on the
that.
agenda for tonight.
No applause for that. They just kind of blew right by it. What outside independent investigative agency would be investigating a Canton police officer? Because internal affairs would be internal. That would not be an outside independent agency. What would it be? The FBI? FBI? People think the FBI? Abusers always play the victim, Joy. You are so right. People think it's the FBI investigating Kevin Albert. For what? Ask yourself that. Is it possible that he was much more involved in the investigation of Karen Reed? Because now I'm going to call it the investigation of Karen Reed. Than we know behind the scenes. Who knows what the FBI found out if it is indeed the FBI? KGB, AAA. The Automobile Association of America. There was one applause, right? And then it was quiet. Nepotism is rampant in Massachusetts. How did they keep it quiet for so long? I'm not out there on the crazy social media side of this. So was it already out there that he had been on paid leave since right after Proctor testified? Dirty Bev. Oh, good one. Like your screen name. He was setting up witnesses. He was in the Sallyport. The Crown, who has come to investigate, says Wild Man's mom. S.J. Howard, he goes to court tomorrow as witness intimidation from Turtle Boy. Kevin Albert or Chris Albert? I don't think it's Sandra Birchmore because they said 2 years ago. Or maybe he's under investigation by the FBI. He was put on plea. It's kind of confusing now. They're saying it was a case from 2 years ago. Sandra Birchmore was 3 years ago. Susan, a neighboring town police department or sheriff's office is probably investigating. I don't know. The way it's phrased is very specific. But it's very, very interesting. Thanks, Athena. We don't know. Could be the FBI. That's what we're thinking. Going back to that question. Oh, thanks, Muddy Paws, for subbing over from Duty Ron. Love your channel. So glad I found you. Thank you, Muddy Paws. I did a great show the other night with Duty Ron and Ed Wallace. It was lots of fun. Go check it out on Duty Ron's channel if you haven't. Arizona Farrell, thank you so much for the 5 new follower. Thanks for sticking with this. Thank you. Thank you for not wanting to watch Alec Baldwin today. Oh, Larissa, thank you for making your channel safe for the little ears. I appreciate you. Damian Matthews, is that really Dave Matthews? Are you coming in here after last night, after you sang to me directly from 10 feet away? Thank you, Damian Matthews, for becoming a YouTube member. Mary Ellen, thank you for the 2. The Deuce. Kristen. Kevin A. also got drunk and worked with Proctor. Thanks for coming in. With the super chat, Brian's ramblings. Can Bev be in trouble? I don't think so. I mean, there's been nothing criminal that I've seen. Mary Ellen K., thanks for the 2. RRB girl, thanks for the 10. I think execution of the Tui Rodriguez as a last resort automatically causes a mistrial if the jury comes back hung. Not necessarily. As Judge Bev or the Judge Canoni likes to say, everything is within her discretion and she has the right to do this, that, and the other. So she knows her rights and she can pretty much use her own, it's called judicial discretion. And often then judges can't be prosecuted for judicial discretion. They have immunity from that. So I think there was a lot of confusion in the jury instructions and the verbal jury instructions. Maybe that's what happened, but I think it deserves further investigation, don't you? I mean, double jeopardy is a thing, even in Massachusetts. As the world burns, thanks for the Deuce. 1 and 3 were slam dunk acquittals. Why not ask? Why not ask? And whose job is it to ask? Is it the judge's job or is it the attorney's job? Lika Lagushka, good morning, afternoon. Lucky to catch a live. Saw something on impoundment order having possibility for Bev to have ex parte hearing before answering defense motion. What say you? I don't know about Massachusetts rules. I don't think she's going to have a hearing out without the attorneys being there. I can't see that being in any way in the interest of justice here. I think the attorneys deserve to be at that hearing. She may say that it can't be televised. It may be in chambers or something, but not ex parte. I don't think. Thank you, Lika Lagushka, for tuning in and for your super chat. Tanya D, thanks for coming in here. So glad I found your channel. Watching from South Africa. Thank you for watching from South Africa and for your super chat. Appreciate you. Katie Fisher says Karma's coming to Canton. Love from London. The world is watching you guys. I'm telling you. Thanks, Katie. Shelby say, what? Love your analysis, Melanie. Appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you so much. 2 new members here. Chris Patch and Bev's Crying Now became members. Thanks for becoming members. Someone needs to send this clip to the new attorney. I'm sure he's got everything. Thank you, Miss Adventurous Book Mouse. Michelle, we did that already. Y'all ain't right. It says, I am outraged. Thanks for the deuce. Nancy. Thanks for the 10. I wondered if they didn't fill the jury slip out because they didn't know she would excuse them immediately and maybe expected to be told to fill out the final slip. That could be. That's what it kind of sounds like from what Juror D, now the juror who just contacted Alan Jackson in his latest filing, seems to have said. Please we rewatch this tomorrow, so there's 3 Melanies. Thanks, BLT. Appreciate that. You're funny. Wendy, Bev rents summer house to McAlbert's yearly conflict. You know, this is so interesting, Wendy, because you guys should go back and watch the stream that I did on the motion to recuse. I think in the title it says something like, should the judge have recused herself? And in that we go over the motion to recuse. And she said from the bench, that's the only motion she ruled from the bench on. I have never rented my summer house out to anyone, and anyone who says that, you know, is lying, and I'm not going to recuse myself, because there was a Venmo shown in court, a big exhibit of a Venmo on giant like science fair type poster board. That was a Venmo transaction from Juliana Nagel to Ryan Nagel. And in the description of the transaction, it says for Frank and Beverly. Beverly was spelled Beverley. Defense argued that Judge may have ties to not only the McCabe's, because Sean McCabe said to Aidan Carney during some sort of message on electronics, oh, do you think we have a tie to Auntie Bev? The one, who do you think, whose seaside cottage do you think we're going to bury your body under? Defense tried to say that that clearly shows that the McCabe's have some sort of a relationship to the judge, because they knew that she had a summer house on the Cape, and it turns out their summer houses are close together on the Cape. In fact, they share the same very narrow beach access. But then when presented with that Venmo transaction, the judge said, first of all, I've never rented out my house on the Cape to anyone. And second of all, I don't know Juliana Nagel, Ryan Nagel. And that's not the way I spell my name, because it was spelled Beverley. She didn't say my husband's name isn't Frank. And I think her husband's name is Frank. I think we've confirmed that. So there's that. Sandy, thanks for becoming a member. Brian, thanks for coming in from Canada. Is this the same Chris Albert? I don't know. I can't click on any links while I have you up here. So if that is something regarding, I don't know what that's regarding. So I can't confirm or deny. Nancy Rolfe, I told my husband I was worried for the first time about a quick acquittal after hearing the jury instructions. Yeah, Nancy, thanks for the 5. They were very confusing. Agreed. David Reese, I thought the fan was the fan favorite. The fan was the fan favorite, but Craig is a close second, I think. And if you were just tuning in, Craig from court is going to be, he's the litigation specialist who was in court for the Reed team. He's going to be doing a show with me hopefully tomorrow. We're going to try and set something up. Thanks, Danielle, for being a member for 6 months. And Fairy Raven, I think it's important to remember that one of the first jurors said they were all intimidated by Brian Albert. Thanks, Fairy, for the super chat. Michelle, thanks to whoever gifted my membership. Whoever gifted Michelle's membership, she says, thank you very much. Melissa, thanks for the 5. Maybe Proctor should have thought about his family instead of being unprofessional and having a power trip as a trooper. He's not above the law. Remember we showed that clip the other day where the reporter went to the Proctor home and he told him to get the F off my lawn. And then his wife, who happened to be dressed in a pink t-shirt, by the way, had some things to say to the reporter as well. Brian, thanks for becoming a member. David and says, thanks for the 5. Internal Affairs doesn't get involved over text messages. Victor Mann, why weren't DNA results run through CODIS? Thank you for the 2. Who knows the way this investigation was handled? Who knows? The only samples they had to test against were Yuri Buchanan's and Michael Proctor's, because as they will remind you, they voluntarily gave their DNA samples. But there was a motion about that too. So I don't know the rules on Massachusetts and CODIS. Who knows? But that's a great point. Maybe the FBI will do that. Maybe the FBI will ask for DNA from everyone who was in the house to rule them out as suspects. Wouldn't that be a proper investigation? Just saying. Just saying. Sandy B, the media was told after the trial, the jury list would not be released due to the hung jury. Oh, that's interesting, Sandy B. Thanks for the 5. Athena became a member. Welcome. Dennis the Menace, thanks for tuning in from Canada, who even says Proctor to federal prison. Mel, thanks for the 10. Do you think the limitation of 1 hour for closings was a problem? Usually both sides cover how to approach the verdict forms, and it felt rushed and incomplete for such a long trial. I've said that from the beginning, Mel. Thanks for your 10. I've said from the beginning that I did not think 1 hour was enough. This was how many witnesses did we end up with in the end? 70 something witnesses? Trial that was going into its 10th week. I do not think an hour was enough at all. I think it should have been a 90-minute minimum. Although I don't know if anybody would want to listen to Lally for 90 minutes, but he didn't even finish on time. He was like only halfway done when he got cut off with his John Adams quote at the very end. Dewey, my dad isn't working for the MSP, so do I get health insurance? Thanks, Dewey. 3 or 5 from my recliner. Hi, welcome from your recliner. And thanks for joining. Starkey, thanks for the super chat. To me, just the lack of searching the house and interviewing the Alberts is enough to investigate Proctor. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Proctor, trooper, is investigating Kevin Albert. Yeah, David, right. Thanks for the 5. Daniel Wimsat, thank you so much for the 20. I'm just grateful that Karen had the resources to hire a great defense team. Without that, none of us would have heard about this case. I know that firsthand. DM me and I'll tell you my story. Thank you. I can't DM you, Daniel, but you can email me at fanbase@mlittlelaw.com. That's where I take all my YouTube emails. If you try and email me on some other email address or DM me through Instagram, I won't get it. So it's fanbase@mlittlelaw.com. I don't respond to all the emails, but I do read them. So as you can imagine, I'm inundated. Iron City Choppers, thanks for becoming a member. Marcello, hello, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are, Marcello. They're getting paid to do their job properly. Now, face the consequences of not doing it. Hopefully, Proctor tells the truth after this. Highly doubt it. Thanks, Marcello, for the super chat. Athena, Kevin was the lead detective in Birchmore, and the FBI investigations include that. Perhaps. I don't know that he was a lead investigator in Birchmore, though. The lead detective, was he? Because I went through the entire Canton PD report, and he's only mentioned in there briefly. Because then the MSP took over, right? Unless I'm missing something there. Steve, thanks. Select board chair is Lucky Loughran's brother. Yeah, I noticed that in the article. There he mentioned a guy named Michael Loughran, and I wondered if that was any relation to Lucky. So thanks for clearing that up, Steve. Can we get I am outraged shirts? Thanks, Michelle. If anybody wants to send me a design, we can have a design competition. Design some I am outraged logos. I'll put them on shirts for you. Sure. Wendy, thanks for the 10. Can Bev be called as witness? Yes. And that's what I'm saying here is that they may need to call in another judge to hear this portion because I may have answered already. I'm just joining. Love the Jimmy Cliff reference. Great song and film. Not only a great attorney, but you really know your music. Oh, girl. If you're tuning in late, you don't know that I was 10 feet away from Dave Matthews all night. Follow me on Instagram for more. You can see the videos that I posted. They're awesome. I think that she can be a witness in this specific jury issue because she went in and talked to the jury afterward, and we don't really know what was said in there. So she may become a witness. They may need to call in a different judge to hear this portion of the jury confusion issue and whether or not they acquitted actually on 2 charges. So yes, the answer is yes, perhaps. Yes, maybe. Thanks, Wendy, darling. Anton Coffendoffer has finally emerged regarding a juror. I do not say that name on my channel, but thank you, Anton. Kimmy, Bev's mom worked with Morrissey's wife for 30 years. I saw that video. I can't remember who did that. Was it Microdots? Yeah, something about the school system, cafeteria, perhaps. So there are strong family ties. They both grew up in Quincy, the judge and Marcy. So I'm not surprised. Thank you for that. Edward, Judge Bev also said, don't fill out the form until you have come to unanimous on all charges. So they may have thought we hung, so don't fill out the form. I agree, Edward. I agree. That's why it was so confusing. Thanks for the 5. The Advocate, thank you so much for your wisdom, humor, and guests throughout this trial. I appreciate you. I appreciate you right back. I appreciate all of you for watching. Please hit the like button because, this will get pushed out while everyone else is watching Alec Baldwin. Then they can watch it later. Jay-Z, love your stream. And Dave, too. Met him at a bar 30 years ago. Nothing like being up front. Glad you enjoy the show. Second summer surgery is keeping me away. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you have a summer surgery and that it's interfering with the tour. That's terrible. That's terrible, Jay-Z. Everyone wish Jay-Z some healing vibes. Because it is very sad that she has to miss summer tour because summer tour is awesome. Thank you, Fahima, for buying me a matcha. so very much. And Marsha for buying me a matcha. Appreciate you. I have found my Mr. T's keychain. So now I have some sound effects to play. That is a good one. Here's another good one. Did anybody ever have the Mr. T keychain? They don't even make it anymore. This is vintage. And it's really amazing. And a friend gave it to me to use on my show. So I love it. Love it. Nope. Late to the chat, but did any of the jurors say they completed the form? Nobody has said that. Nobody has said that. Sweet Woman is going to see Dave Matthews in Mansfield on Friday. That's going to be awesome. It's always an awesome night with the Dave Matthews Band. Mr. T, yeah, it is valuable, right? Here, he says this too. That could apply to practically anybody in this trial. We have sound effects, my friends. We have sound effects. Yep, that is Mr. T. So that is what we have for you today, Iron City Choppers. Thanks for getting in there with the last minute. 5 and Jen Ken met Dave Matthews years ago in our hotel at Jazz Fest in the hotel gym of all places. That is really cool. That's really cool. Well, since a lot of you seem to love Dave Matthews, let me show you this really cool picture that he took of us last night, like a crowd shot. Let me see if I can find it. He took like a selfie of the entire, of like all of us that were in the front and some people that were behind us. I can't find it right now, but I will post on Instagram later. So for those of you who follow me on Instagram, you'll be able to see it. Thank you, Mom Michelle, for the 10. I'm a bit behind, but love your channel. And Dave is so dreamy. Well, now I kind of have to find that. So just give me a second. Where is it? All right, here it is. This was so cool. It was so cool. For me, it was so cool. You might not think it's so cool, but I think it's so cool. There he is. He took someone's phone. He took a picture, and there's me right there in the hat and the yellow dress and the glasses. Like, that's how far away I was from Dave Matthews last night. It was awesome. It was the night of a lifetime, and it's hard to go back to reality after that. So hence the reason that my voice is so crazy today. And thank you all for tuning in. To the mods for keeping the chat classy. You are amazing as always. Tune in for tomorrow. Make sure you're subscribed. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Rumi Descendant, thank you so much for the 50 on Venmo from California. Says, thank you so much for your superb and professional coverage. I've been a follower you religiously since before going to since before the trial. I'm so glad you're going to give Sandra Birchmore a voice as well. Thank you. Thank you, Rumi. So very much. And Tara, thank you for the Venmo. You guys are amazing. Shauna, thank you for the Cash App. She says, I'll find you later. Trees it brought me 10 matcha lattes. Said, I knew I liked you when you went against the tide from the beginning and came in with receipts and logic. Thank you, Trees it. You guys are really, really generous and so very kind. And that's why we've created such an amazing community here for all of us to be able to communicate without the personal attacks, the trash talk, the curse words, and all that good stuff. Thanks, Callie Sandy RN. Screenshot from X regarding Fanding. Where to send? Oh, you got that right now. Fanbase at mlittlelaw.com. Let's take a look. Thanks, Callie Sandy. Fanbase at mlittlelaw.com. And we'll pull up a few comments while we're waiting. Alistair Crowley, I know I get crap for this, but I don't really get the Baldwin trial and that Hannah Gutierrez convicted, and the assistant director pled out were the people directly responsible for the gun. Yeah, there's a lot of issues there, Alistair. So I don't know that you're going to get crap for it, but I do know that it's a very divisive case. People who know a lot about guns say that before you point a gun at anybody, you're supposed to check the chamber. Like, that's just what you do. Other people are of the opinion that he was an actor on set, and therefore there is somebody hired for that specific job to do that job, to make sure that there's no live rounds in the chamber. There are some questions about whether or not the dummy bullets look the same as real bullets. How did live ammunition get on set? He's also a producer. People feel that he should have liability for that because he cut corners by hiring an armorer that had little to no experience. And so there's that. But now the jury's not going to be able to hear any information regarding his role as producer. So Charlotte says, yeah, civil suits for sure for Baldwin, but criminal? No, not seeing it. Yeah. And there's a lot of political bias in that case. I think it's like, if I'm going to hire something divisive, cover something divisive, I might as well just stick with Karen Reed, because I certainly don't need any more hatred coming at me from all the sides. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know where that screenshot is from the viewer who said they were going to send it because it didn't come yet. But the internet is breaking right now because of this. So there has been some buzz that perhaps Lieutenant Fanning, who was involved in the group text messages with Trooper Proctor, may have been in charge of the jury in this case, which I find to be a bit crazy if it's true. I don't know where the information is coming from, so I cannot verify the truth and veracity of it. But yes, the criminal liability is where I have an issue. He's also been he's doing a reality show with his wife Hilaria and the 7 little Baldwinitos. They're going to start a reality show, probably on Bravo. I don't really know. I looked into it briefly, but I don't know who's going to be watching that on the day-to-day information. All right, that's it for today, folks. We short and sweet. Thanks, mods, for doing the classy things. Everyone, please hit the like button on the way out. It really helps the algorithm, helps the stream. Subscribe, it's free. Hit the bell so you get notified. And I'm going to see you tomorrow. If not before, probably tomorrow, most likely. But if you don't hit the bell, you'll never know. So that's what you should do. As I say at the end of every stream, my friends, remember, be cool, be kind, be classy. It's not hard, really. It is so not hard. And you're all awesome. Hello from Sweden. Hello to Sweden. Thank you, Tristan, for last minute thank yous. Melanie Parker became a member. Thanks for the 5 for the cause. Adam Drives Helen. You can always rewind. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. Be cool, be kind, be classy. It is really, really, really not hard. Rise above, my friends. Rise above, and peace. See you tomorrow.